Welcome back to another edition of the Friday Golf Podcast. I am your host, Andy Johnson. Welcome to the new year. Welcome to 2025. I've got an exciting episode. I'm joined by Gabby Herzig, a staff writer at The Athletic, to talk about 2025 in pro golf. And I'm also joined on the back half by Joseph LaMagna and PJ Clark, our producer, and Joseph, one of our creators here at Friday Golf, to talk about TGL that's barreling down. Just a quick little housekeeping. This is a new year at this podcast. We are going to be going to a one episode per week cadence. So every Wednesday, you will get a new Friday Golf episode. I will be your host, and we'll bring Garrett, Joseph, familiar faces, Tom Doak, on regularly over the course of the year, but the format will be a little bit different. We'll probably have, 1 to 2 guests per podcast. There will be kind of different segments, and I will be the only host. Garrett will be working on some projects of his own that we're excited to bring to life, that he will kind of own, and we won't be sharing this podcast. So Garrett will kind of have his own house to live in, and I'll have my own house. We won't be roommates on this podcast. So I'm super excited about this podcast in 2025. We'll be with you every Wednesday, and excited about some of the topics we've got dreamed up here. So without further ado, I hope everybody had a great holiday season. I hope everybody got to spend great time with family and friends, and welcome back to 2025 in the Friday Golf Podcast. Let's get to Gabby Herzig. Gabby, welcome back. Happy New Year. Are you a resolution person?
That's a great question, Andy. I sometimes am, and sometimes I'm not. Last year, my New Year's resolution mainly was to become a morning person, and it worked for about the first 3 months of the year, and then we tapered off back into my normal ways of being a night owl. So that's kind of the farthest I go with New Year's resolutions, is like little things like that. But yeah, not really a resolution person. What about you?
I would say that I'm relatively unsuccessful. My biggest success in recent years is I just full stopped soda.
Ooh.
And I think I've had like 1 or 2 sodas in the last 2 years.
That's incredible.
So I just was like, I'm done with this, and I just ended it. So I don't know what I'm going to do this year. I think I might have broken a rib a couple of weeks ago.
Oh no!
And
are you okay?
Yeah, I've been all right. It's just like a pain in the ass because you can't do anything.
Yeah, ribs are important.
Yeah, like you can't do so you can't like deeply breathe, which is crazy.
Oh yeah, breathing. That's a good one.
So anyways, I've been walking a lot, and I've really enjoyed that. I've like gone for like hour walks, but like you can do stuff while you walk, like you can listen. Like I've been listening to podcasts. You could have phone calls. So I think that's what I'm going to do next year, is maybe incorporate some work schedule into walks.
I think that's a great idea. I love it.
That might be the New Year's resolution.
I'm really jealous of this soda movement of yours, though, because I have a huge sweet tooth and I would never be able to give up my sodas.
Well, I just thought about like the soda thing. It just like when I thought about it, it was like I never feel good after I drink one.
Okay, fair.
There's better. I like the caffeine of it, but there's better ways to get caffeine. I could just have an espresso shot, right? And then I was like, if I'm gonna use the sugar, I'd rather like there are way better uses of sugar consumption,
totally.
Like ice cream, cookies. Like these are far superior delivery methods of sugar if I'm in the sugar business.
The problem is I just eat all of it.
Yeah. I think that's a problem for almost all of us. Like, yes. I don't understand these people that have self-control,
No, I don't get it. It's not for me.
So anyways, the small step, I looked at soda and just said, I'm done with this. And it's worked out well. Like, no diet soda, no nothing. I feel like carbonated water is the other thing, like like your LaCroix, Nixies of the world. That helps a ton too, because sometimes you just need that.
Maybe I should get into that a little more. Maybe I'll start. I'm taking inspiration right now, Andy. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. I can't believe that it's not even the turn of the new year. It's the 30th when we're recording this, and we have PGA Tour golf in like 3 days.
No, it's crazy.
It feels like this should be 1 week later than it is, but we're gonna start. We're starting the year. So we've got it kicks off on January 2nd. So I wanted to do a little season preview. Kind of 5 things are major championship format, but for the season, 5 things we're watching. I will let you start here. What's the first thing that you want to talk about with the 2025 PGA Tour? Actually, we'll just call it men's golf season, because I've got one that doesn't relate to the PGA Tour.
Got it. I have one that doesn't relate to men's golf, so we can maybe switch it up.
How about 2025 golf preview?
Perfect. Okay, let's see where we should start. I am going to start with the PGA Tour PIF deal and the incoming Trump administration and everything that could come with that. Do you want me to elaborate, or would you like to respond?
I will just say that I purposely kept this off because I figured you'd have it on.
Right. I figured that too.
I would love to hear what you're thinking about it.
Yes. I am thinking that this deal is imminent. I think that after Inauguration Day, we are probably going to hear talks ramp up a lot. I spoke to you earlier this fall, Andy, about my article on the election and how it could impact the completion of the PGA Tour PIF deal. And it looks like everything that's unfolded over the past 3 months, like all signs are pointing to that hypothesis being true. And, we heard even Rory McIlroy say it in a press conference that Trump could usher this deal along with the DOJ hurdle in the way. And it looks like things are going to get moving in 2025. And I don't know what it looks like. I think we know now that the Department of Justice and the antitrust negotiation was kind of this like holding block that has really stalled this deal and any public information surrounding the deal. But I think one giant mystery that I don't know how this is going to be figured out or where they are with it or anything is like how this crossover between tours is going to work. Like, will LIV players be able to come back to the PGA Tour? Will there be crossover in the other direction? Is the OWGR going to be fixed? Like, there are so many questions around this thing, but I do think something that golf fans can be a little bit more optimistic about is the actual like completion of a deal with that Department of Justice hurdle kind of becoming less of a thing with Trump in office. So it's super interesting how politics and the White House has become like a stake in pro golf, and that's something I have always been fascinated about, is the crossover between sports and politics. So that's why I got into this whole thing. But now I actually feel like things are going to move along. So that's my deal.
It seems like it's it's a very small percentage of the population, but it's a percentage of the population that incoming President Trump clearly cares about is golf, because he's a big golfer. Right. He owns golf properties. But it seems like it's like a logical like win on the board kind of like first couple of weeks of in office. Like, look at what I got done.
I really, really wouldn't be surprised. Like, he played golf with Jay Monahan. He invited Yasser to the UFC fight. Like, there are things happening. We can all see it. It's just a matter of time now, I think. So
I think like one of the things that I wonder about is like, what if it's just a financial deal?
it could be.
And if it's just a financial deal, are we just in the same spot? And does LIV continue to pick off players? Like, is that going to be a thing? Because like, you know, like the other aspect of this is Fox and the deal. And this is one of my things. So we can just wrap this all in here. I didn't anticipate to talk LIV PGA Tour right out of the gates, but the LIV and Fox deal, like, to me, like, it's fascinating. Like, the rights with the PGA Tour and Golf Channel are, I think they're coming up fairly soon again, which is
2031, I think.
Yeah, so it's not like that far in the future. Like, it's not like a arbitrage, like 20-year rights deal, right? And this Fox thing, like, if that deal, like, to me, that's a big deal for LIV. Like, they might actually have the product be viewable, because like, nobody's going to the CW to watch golf, but all of a sudden, if you're on Fox, like, it could be on FS2, FS1. I doubt it's going to be on Fox. I don't think that's where it's going to be. But like, if you're on FS1, you have like the ability to get a casual sports fan. Their other shows are going to have an interest in covering LIV Golf because of like the, you know, hey, we've made an investment in this. We're going to have our, you know, daily talk shows cover it. So like, to me, like, everything that's happened with LIV, with the new CEO, the Fox deal, that tells me that LIV's not going away.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
And then you have this deal that's that seems imminent. It seems like it's going to happen. But to me, it makes me feel like it's only a financial deal. And I could be wrong.
No, I feel like all signs are kind of pointing to that in a way. Like, and when I heard about the Fox deal initially, I was still just like, is it really going to get casual sports fans to watch it more? Because the first 4 events of the year are happening in the middle of the night in the US, right?
Yeah.
And like, so maybe it could be on Big Fox, but no one's going to be awake to see it. So, it like, clearly, like, there are long-term plans still being made for LIV Golf and like its leadership and the broadcast schedule. Like, player contracts, I think, still have a few years to run out. I feel like there are still going to be 2 separate entities in pro golf, the PGA Tour and LIV, like, for the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, I think at a minimum. And who knows, like, you know, like, Yasser might be, I think there was a rumor that he was potentially investing in the European Tour too.
Right.
Like, is this just like they want to have their hands in all of golf? They have, like, you know, they want to have a seat at the table. That seemed to be like the original intention and goal of this. But in the meantime, you know, I think it's easy to dunk on LIV. It's fun to dunk on LIV. Like,
of course.
But they do have, like, they had, so in doing year in review research, they had some meaningful Sundays this year. In particular, like the tournament that went opposite Pebble when Pebble was off, on Sunday because of the rain. Like, they had a great leaderboard and like an interesting tournament. And I think like they do a lot of stuff pretty well. And I think they have pushed golf broadcasts forward
100%.
So I do think like there are, like, the increased visibility can't be just like swept under the rug with LIV. And, you know, like, I don't know. The issue, their issue is like, it seems like players go there and get worse.
Yeah, that, I think the like competitive nature of the league is like there's a serious problem there. But what I was going to say, what came to mind when you were just speaking was also like the media rights argument. I feel like LIV has pushed the boundaries a lot with that and what they're doing on the internet and on social media, like everything that Bryson DeChambeau has done. And this kind of connects to one of my other things as well. In the YouTube space is like, that is not possible really for a PGA Tour player. And now we have things like the Creator Classic and the Creator Council. And there's an effort to work around the media rights agreements that, again, like expire in 2031 with the TV contracts. And I don't think we would have had such a serious effort if it weren't for LIV. Like, I really don't think that would have happened at all, especially at the pace that we're seeing now. Like, I still don't think the PGA Tour is going to reach the level of like openness in that sense that we ever will want it to until maybe those contracts expire and there's a renegotiation of the intellectual property. But that's another thing that we have to give like huge props to, at least for the effort.
I mean, the TGL, which launches next week.
Right.
I think it's like a pretty big deal. That's what the second half of this podcast is about. But
oh, nice.
That wouldn't, I was thinking about it this morning when I was on a walk. That would not have existed if it wasn't for LIV. Like, there's no way that the PGA Tour of 4 years ago would get on board with the TGL and like Rory and Tiger's financial interest in the TGL. Like, this would not have existed. Like, this would have been like, oh, we'll try and do it ourselves and completely on our own and own 100%. Like, the only reason that this thing has gotten off the ground is because of LIV, which is, I had this as another thing. We'll just kind of dive in here.
Okay.
Like, and this, like what you brought up, Bryson, the YouTube stuff. Something I'm fascinated about is the back half of the Ryder Cup team. I think we know like some locks on the Ryder Cup. Like, we know Xander, Cantlay, Scotty are general locks. Like, you could go down the OWGR and get to 5 or 6 locks. My question is, what does the back half look like? And one of those people is Bryson. And if Bryson
he's the back half,
well, it depends on what happens this year. He's been so up and down over the course of his career. I think he's dedicated to golf, so I think he's going to have like a great year. I think he's going to be, last year was the best year of his career.
Yeah,
probably. I think. I mean, he had some really good career,
major record at least.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what's most important for Ryder Cup points.
But what's interesting is like the Bryson dynamic with the U.S. Ryder Cup team.
Oh yeah, it's not good.
Like, is he going to try and bring the YouTube cameras in? Like, what's the content around it? Like, I just think he's not going to be a great chemistry fit. And I think like one of the things, like, we could say this or that about like the U.S. team, and does it matter? Does it not? They've always had issues with chemistry.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they already like barred the Netflix show from the team room, and there were all those issues with that in Italy. So imagine Bryson rolls up with his content team and they're like, no, this is not going to work.
And then is he in a bad mood all week? Like,
I mean, yeah. Did you see him in the showdown? He looked miserable.
He looked
like there was something going on there.
I don't think anybody was really happy.
No. I mean, he took the earpiece out.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm not doing this anymore. It's the whole point of the thing.
I don't think like anybody enjoyed. Like, I don't think really anybody enjoyed Bryson's company there.
No. Yeah, that was a tough scene. That was a tough scene.
That was a weird situation.
Very
the whole
weird
thing.
And then Scotty is like, I don't know what to do with Bitcoin, but thank you.
I guess like, there was always like this like undercurrent of Phil and Tiger through the years of like they didn't really get along.
Right.
They diametrically seemed to see the world different ways. They were all-time great competitors, and now like 3 years removed from LIV, it's like very clear how different they are, right?
Oh yeah, night and day.
But for like 20 years, we had this like, they're kind of friends, but they aren't really.
Yes.
And it feels like that's the way like all the top players treat Bryson now. It's like, I don't think anybody really likes him. Even Brooks, who like, but they have to deal with him because he is one of the best players in the world and one of the most influential players in the world. Maybe like, I think you could make an argument that he's like the top 3 most influential people in golf.
I think so. I feel like he really moves the needle. Like, can we just talk about for a second the series of him hitting balls over his house? And what was it, 16-day journey, or how many days was it? I forget. But those videos were getting like 10 million views, every single one of them.
It was incredible.
Like, it was incredible. That's that's the amount of engagement across platforms. Hundreds of millions of views. And that's hard to get. Like, think how niche our sport is. And he's like getting outside, not even just the golf bubble, but the sports bubble. And I think that's really cool. And it's really difficult to do. That's like, I mean, Tiger and Charlie, like getting those numbers at the PNC the other week, it like reminds me of that kind of thing. It's like when my friend who has watched one golf tournament in their entire life texts me a link and I'm like, how did you find this? It's because they're bursting out of that bubble that like we're all trying to kind of figure out how that's consistently done.
I think if you think about like what's going on in sports, this is a greater conversation. Like ratings across sports for the most part outside of the NFL are down.
Right.
One of the things is that the distribution model is changing before our eyes. And distribution used to be the thing that sports leagues had, like what their power is, their distribution. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the PGA Tour's YouTube channel, which has become a massive distribution source, this 1.5 million subscribers, Bryson's is 1.7. He has more distribution on probably the fastest growing digital channel for golf. He has a bigger distribution footprint than the PGA Tour. And, like that's, I think like when you think about where LIV, and you made this point, all right, where LIV has thrived has been the ability to allow people like Bryson the opportunity to build distribution with access. And the rights deal that you've brought up multiple times in 2031 greatly prohibit the ability for the PGA Tour and their players to do similar things. It prohibits people like us from doing really like anything on the grounds at a PGA Tour site. But like when you look at what it's doing to the PGA Tour is that it is making it less relevant.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the thing with like distribution now, and I think we actually spoke a bit about this a few months ago, is like there are just it's not so much you're just turning on the TV and being fed what the major networks or what the major leagues want you to consume. Like the consumer now of the media or content or whatever you might be watching is like has all the power because you have the choice. And like, for example, like Bryson, I just looked up, has 2.2 million followers on Instagram. The PGA Tour only has 5.3 million. Like we're talking about a single individual here. And like your persona and your likeness, just like in NIL as well, is your power, is your key to distribution and access and spreading kind of what you want to spread. Bryson has the knowledge and the awareness that like he is targeting to specific individuals, not to networks, not to leagues, not to these big entities. He's like trying to capture the attention of the 13-year-old sitting on his couch looking up trick shot videos. It's a totally different environment now. And the PGA Tour has, in a way, locked themselves into the distribution mindset of 5, 10, 15 years ago with these contracts. And I know for a fact, based on everything they're doing, they're like, it feels like there's regret there in the signing deals and how far out they actually went. And I don't think there was like correct, it's hard to predict, obviously, but there wasn't like a sense of like moving with the times. It was like, this is how things are going to be, and we're going to stick with it, and we're going to sign. And obviously the tour has to make money in some way, and these TV contracts are the biggest source of income by far that they have. But in general, I feel like it is just a really tough position also for the PGA Tour to be in, because like they do have the legal obligation to follow through with these deals. But there are people within the PGA Tour, I know, that want to further things along any way they can. And that's why we're seeing TGL. That's why we're seeing the Creator Council, the Creator Classic, better social media presence. I feel like the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter have been like really good over the past few years. Those hype videos at I forget what the name of the team. Yeah, the player content team. It's brilliant.
It's I like what they are, but they need to be a little bit more tailored. Because if you follow like five players, like the obvious, like 5+ players, it's like, oh, this is clearly being made by the same person. I think that's the unique thing with what Bryson's done. True. Is that Bryson effectively has like his own media team.
Yes, he does.
And everything fits his bit, right? It is authentic. It feels authentic. We're talking about maybe the least authentic person in golf. Feels like the most authentic one because he has a team that only makes his stuff. The issue, I think, with like the tour stuff, and it's like, it's great steps. It's great progress. But the issue is like every player feels the same because it's the same people making every player's stuff. And I think this wasn't necessarily the conversation with the back half. It was Bryson was like a small piece of the back half of the Ryder Cup team, but it is like it is just the way distribution is changing is just a huge, I think, undercurrent to all the news that's happening in golf. Like everybody, like every week, if it's not Rory, Spieth, or Tiger playing an event on a Sunday, seemingly is the ratings are down. So to me, I would say throw Bryson in there too for major championships. But like to me, like that's a distribution kind of like the power of their distribution is dwindling. And you know, like it's YouTube TV is a fascinating thing to talk about because it's like it's an algorithm, right? It knows I live in a household. My wife does not watch live television anymore.
I wouldn't watch live TV if it weren't for golf, personally. Like the content that I consume outside of my job and golf as like a hobby in general, like it's not on live TV.
Yeah. And like, so it's fascinating when I turn the TV on, it knows like the only thing getting served on the TV is sports.
Right.
Because it's got like it like auto plays something that it thinks I'll like. Usually it's right, but it's like golf, football, basketball. That's
I get the same thing.
And it's like, it's wild, right? Like, but like, so if you think about it, it's like that there are going to be less and less passerbys than ever before.
100%.
And I think that's really that's the rating conversation.
Yeah.
And how does the tour make money on alternate forms of golf? How do they build properties? How do they build their YouTube page? And I think that was the big deal with the Creator Classic, but it has to be getting their big players doing things outside of the 72-hole stroke play.
Yeah, they just really have to buy in. And I feel like that's part of the reason why this whole PGA Tour like equity program was created too, that the players have a stake in the growth of the PGA Tour. But I don't necessarily know if we've seen the effects of that kick in yet. Like I have a Q&A coming out relatively soon with Kevin Kisner, and one of the things I talked to him about was like what conversations have you had with players about like what you think the role of media is in 2025 and beyond. And he was basically saying like, we need access, like we need these guys to open up. And I'm like, kids, we've been saying this for so long, like finally, like we need that line of communication though. Someone like Kisner, who's been on the PGA Tour, been on player boards, now is a voice in media as the lead analyst for NBC. And to have someone like him actually like patting guys on the back on the range, being like, you know, come on, give me something to work with here. Like maybe even the smallest things like that can get the ball rolling. But it really all goes down to, I think, player buy-in, because the PGA Tour is now, like you said, making an effort to do these things, and they were pushed by LIV to do them. And there are restrictions here and there, but everyone has to work together. And the one phrase that I've heard repeated multiple times talking to YouTubers for some of my research is the rising tide lifts all ships. And
Absolutely.
that has been something that I just don't think the PGA Tour has ever understood, maybe until like last year. And I feel like they're now putting the effort and starting these initiatives and programs that like actually like abide by that kind of rule in a way. And it's encouraging to see, for sure.
I mean, if you compare them, the way they kind of approach people that can amplify their sport, golf, like someone like me or you, or even the players, like, think about it compared to the NFL. Like a few of my friends that cover the NFL, they get like basically like right after the games, they have like this all 22 thing that they can go in and just like clip whatever they want and analyze the sport with the footage. And it's like,
imagine what we could do with that.
This is so additive to the fan experience of what they're doing. And it's like, if I post a clip of a shot, I'm going to get DMCA'd and,
100%.
And it's going to be taken down. Yep. And, this is, maybe get a talking to from somebody at the tour about not doing it. Right. Yeah. Like, it's like the complete, couldn't be more opposite. But did you watch the Scotty doc that they just posted on YouTube? I
actually haven't watched it yet. No.
To me, like, that's like an example of something that was really well done that they need to do more of. But one of the illuminating things that Sean Martin talked a little bit about when he came on this, and he was the producer, he did a great job with it. But like, they have like cameras rolling all the time, and we never see any of it.
Where does it all go? It goes into the ether. like
they have all this behind the scenes footage of Scotty like playing, like, like there's like just this funny interaction with Scotty and Shane Lowry in the scoring tent before Bay Hill, where Lowry makes like a comment about his beard and Scotty like quips back. And it's like, that was like a great genuine moment where like, why did we just see it? Like, these are things that, it's like, I just think about like, and obviously like the NFL is the gold standard, comparing, but like, you think about like all the things that the NFL does, like with the mic'd up players behind the scenes, like all the stuff they do. They have the hard knocks stuff going on. They have like, obviously fantasy football. We have fantasy golf, which is like, it's popular, but like all the things that go into making football like this day in, day out thing that people keep in touch with for the season. I think the TGL is like a great example of a step and they're really in the right direction for golf. Like, how do we get it more of a conversation outside of Sunday? Because right now, to me, it feels like it's just like so Sunday driven. Thursday, Friday, like you have to be so dedicated to tune in. But like, how do you make it more part of the conversation 7 days a week?
Yeah, that actually makes me think of another kind of statistic that popped up when I was doing my YouTube golf research. Was, I forget the exact percentage, but it was like a majority of Gen Zers, when they consume content, they're consuming like reactionary content or like content about the main event instead of the actual main event. And that makes me think of NFL, because I'm not a huge football fan, but I watch those TikToks of the team, like social media intern, like interviewing the players as they come out of the locker room about the dumbest things you can imagine. And I also watch like episodes of Hard Knocks, and those are that's the content around the main event. And I feel like golf doesn't really have that. Like we are kind of waiting for that to happen, and that's why people go to YouTube. And I feel like if the PGA Tour just bought into that idea and made their own content around the content, like it could help them so much with revenue streams and with attention and just like grabbing people's eyeballs. Like those TikToks, I'll watch them. They're good.
Yeah. I mean, this is a huge issue for all of sports. Like the NBA is like, people care more about free agency than who wins the NBA finals.
Right.
Like, it's like,
right.
what do we do? Like, I think golf's issue is like, the PGA Tour's main issue is like, it feels like golf is heading into, and I don't want this to sound pessimistic. I love watching PGA Tour golf. Like,
me too.
I will tune into pretty much anything, but the greater undercurrent is like the majors are becoming more and more important, and the LIV fracture has created this. It is only like pushed this faster. How, like, do you become like tennis, where it, like, people outside of the diehards like don't care what happens at Indian Wells or Cincinnati, or, you know, like, you don't want to become that where it's only the majors. Mm-hmm. And like the PGA Tour's existential crisis is that because they own none of them.
100%. I just wonder, like, with that direction in mind, like, do the Saudis care that golf is like going in that direction? Is that a concern? Like, do they really just want a seat at the table? But what is the point of having a seat at the table for a sport that's like in decline in a lot of ways, and because of their involvement? It's just like, it's so counterintuitive to think about. And I just like wish I could be a fly on the wall in some of these boardroom meetings. Like, I don't know, like what is the direction here? Like, what is the goal?
It's a great question. I think maybe their issue right now is that a lot of their board has different goals, and those goals all pull in different directions, and
which is how we got here.
What happens is that nothing moves in any direction because of that. Right. All right, back half. Let's get back to the back half of the Ryder Cup team.
How did that spin to that?
This conversation just going. So you have like the LIV dynamic with Brooks and Bryson.
Right.
And are there any other players that have like a great year? You know, obviously we know Taylor is going to believe they should be on the team, regardless of what he does. But then like my bigger question is like, is it like JT, Spieth? I think JT has a real chance of playing his way back into like the top half, but like, is it Spieth, Keegan, you know, Billy Horschel type players at the back half? Maybe Daniel Berger has like a resurgent year, or is it going to look really young with like Akshay, Sahith, Nick Dunlap? Like, to me, like the back half of that Ryder Cup, like I always go back to Whistling Straits. Mm-hmm. And Whistling Straits, the U.S. just demolishes Europe. And the team looked just like so locked in. Like, this is going to be the team for the next 8 years, and Europe is screwed. And now it's like, I don't know, there might be 5 players from that team on this team. 4 years removed, you know?
Right. It also felt like the Whistling Straits team, and correct me if I'm wrong, was like kind of like from a more condensed generation, like age wise. And I feel like with Bethpage Black coming up, like it really could go either way, where it could be like the old guard only with like a couple sprinkled in. It could be like way more of the new guard, the young guys, or it could be a mix of the two, which I think would put us at a disadvantage because it's just like harder to connect as a team. And I feel like with the President's Cup team, actually, I forget, were you in Montreal, Andy?
I was not.
You were not in Montreal. It did feel like there was a harmony among the guys. Like, it felt like a lot of them played junior off together. A lot of them like are in the same stages in life, like just having a kid or like married, or all like the wives got along, and like Kisner was like vibing with everyone because there was just like kind of a humor to the team. But it is really uncertain, you're right, with the back half of the Ryder Cup team of like which way we're going to go.
Yeah. And yeah, I just find myself thinking, because like, I don't know, I started covering golf in 2015, and Spieth was so young. Mm-hmm. JT was young. And I just find myself at this point always thinking about the Wedding Crashers line when they're sitting on the steps and they're like, and I think Owen Wilson says, "We're not that young anymore," you know?
That's exactly what's happening.
And it's like Jordan Spieth, next time Ryder Cup goes through, is 32. You know, like JT's 32.
2 kids.
Yeah. Xander's 30. Xander and Scotty, to me, they're obviously locks. They are bona fide locks, and probably and I think like with Xander playing so well, Cantlay had a bad year last year, but like Cantlay's going to be a lock because of their partnership. But like that bottom you could see somebody that like pops the way Ludwig did. Like maybe Michael Thorbjornsson. You wrote an article about Michael Thorbjornsson. Maybe he's like, maybe somebody like that. Who knows what Luke Clanton does over the next, but like that team could be where Scotty and Xander are the old guys.
Right. Which would be insane. But I feel like they actually did like get some good practice like at the President's Cup. And we talked to Jim Furyk about this after the win, is like Xander, Scotty, Colin, and Patrick Cantlay were like the leaders in that team room, which is so funny thinking about what Whistling Straits was like. And Scotty was kind of the young new guy who came out of nowhere. So it could go for, but where it also could go is like Russell Henley makes the team and like Wyndham Clark is back again. But like that's a totally separate category in my opinion.
Also, I mean, yeah, like I saw something. I don't know. Did you see the Rob Bolton social post of the ranking of the PGA Tour players?
No, but can I look it up so I can reference it?
It's an Instagram post. I think the tour put it up. They had like Keegan ranked like 52 or something. Like they had all these players chiming in. It was like Rob Bolton's 2025 like player ranking. And I mean, but it's like Keegan's the 12th ranked player in the world right now.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm seeing this right now.
All the like, there's so many players that commented.
It's so random.
I like loved it because it was like, this is amazing content. Yeah. It's amazing content because like all the players, it like clearly they posted over the holidays. All these players are on their phone and they're like, what the fuck?
Like gear up for 2025 with Rob Bolton's full fantasy rankings. The Keegan with the eye emojis.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's incredible.
It's awesome.
Like there are so many players that are in the messages.
Someone just comments, all right, who the F is Robbie Bolton?
He's been at it a long time. I feel like I read Rob Bolton when I was like a kid.
Legend. A lot of Wesley Bryan comments.
Oh, yeah, well, again, he's a YouTuber.
Yep. The needle.
He's ranked ahead of Tiger. Tiger's like 191.
No way.
It's an incredible piece of content.
That is amazing. I totally miss this.
What else do you have on your list?
Okay, let me pull up the list. Yeah, so mine was, I had a Ryder Cup one, but mine was more the like logistical disaster that could be the Ryder Cup. If we're thinking about Long Island and Bethpage Black, as a native New Yorker. I remember actually going to the PGA Championship with my dad and my brother, and we took the subway and the LIRR and the shuttle, and we eventually got there. And I am worried. I'm worried about the setup in New York, the traffic. There will be some sort of chaos, disaster, morning, evening, and I don't know what it is, but it will happen. And I'm scared.
I was at that PGA.
Yeah.
I was at.
Were you staying close by?
No, I was in the city. It was
you were
awful.
In the city. Right.
It was awful getting there. I also was at the Shinnecock US Open. And by happenstance, by my procrastination, my late booking.
Oh no, where did you stay?
Well, I stayed east of Shinnecock in like a little bed and breakfast. And it was incredible. I had like this delightful like 12-minute drive
Wow.
But everybody else, like if you're staying
from
west of it, you're screwed. You're done.
Totally.
It's awful. So yeah, it could be Solheim Cup levels.
It could be. I know. I just don't know if it's going to be the train, the bus, the grandstands. Like something is going to go wrong. Also, the tickets were $900, so things don't go well. People aren't going to be that happy about that.
That's the issue, right?
Yeah.
Is like if it was like a $30 ticket, a $100 ticket, $150 ticket,
you
people
expect
have more sympathy. But when you spend, if you're a family of 4 and you spend $3,600, $4,000 ish on, the whole thing, you probably expect some sort of like nice parking situation,
smooth ride. Yep. Yeah. And you also had to pay for parking too on top of the ticket. So that was mine. I mean, and also like in relation to that, like everything that happened at the Waste Management last year with like the chaos that unfolded and just like the environment that is Long Island and sports and like the debauchery that could unfold is like, it actually is terrifying to me.
Yeah. It's Ryder Cup. I feel like we have like, I feel like Waste Management like boiled up to like what it was.
Yeah.
And it feels like the Ryder Cup has been having this like, it's kind of been like a home field discussion where it's like, is there too much, in the home team's control? And we haven't had like a close Ryder Cup in a long time.
No.
And because of that, like it's been like this undertow. And does Bethpage be the moment where it like sets it off over the edge? I know.
It could. Yeah, it could. I mean, like it feels like it's like kind of this Bombers golf course, which I think will naturally favor the US. And you guys, you're the course nerds here. You can talk more to this than I can, but like, I feel like you already get the course setup advantage of putting tees in certain places, the roughs up here, down there, pin locations, etc. But like just the nature of that golf course, I feel like automatically favors the States.
I had never been there, and Jeff Ogilvy did a preview episode with me before the PGA, and he said, nobody will win this tournament. I'm paraphrasing here. He said this way more eloquently, but he's like, you have to fly it 310 yards to win this tournament at this golf course. And then it was Brooks and Bryson just duking it out. And like people are always going to point, they're going to point to like Jordan Spieth finished 3rd at that PGA. He had the best, I think it was statistically the best putting week ever. And he finished like 10 shots out in 3rd. So that to the earlier Ryder Cup conversation, I think that would skew towards young players. Right.
100%. Michael Thorbjornsen is like I think he's like the 5th longest hitter on tour if he was counted in the statistics. Like he doesn't even have enough rounds to count.
Clanton is really long too.
Yeah.
And I think Akshay is above average length. Like generally the longer players are always going to be the younger players. So it's an interesting aspect of it. Here's a question for one of mine.
I'm ready.
What's a realistic over under for Scotty Scheffler wins in 2025?
Well, the glass in the hand complicates things, doesn't it? That was one of mine.
One of the weirdest tweets of the holiday break was the PGA Tour's 100 expects to make 100% recovery.
That was a quote from his agent.
Yeah, like what? Why was that coming from the PGA Tour?
I don't know. I mean, they had it like it was all perfectly like set to go. Like every social channel posted Scotty glass in his hand at the same time. It was like the announcement of the century. But that's like a pretty serious like place to get surgery. No, like
I feel like surgery seems like a lot. It's not like he got stitches.
No, he's like going under the knife. I hate to be laughing because like hopefully this isn't serious, but like that is your connection to the club. And I'm kind of like not ready to say Scotty's going to win 9 times now.
Pre glass in hand, what would you have said?
Pre-glass in hand. I mean,
over under. So like betting line.
He won 7 this year.
I think
8 with the hero.
10 with the hero?
Oh, 10
Was
with the
it?
hero? Okay. 9 with the hero.
9 with the hero.
PJ's got us covered.
That's what
I would say over under
PJ's here for.
7.5.
I was pre-glass in hand, 7.5 felt.
Yeah.
Which is insane. I mean, maybe 6.5. Like the thing about what's happened with the tour schedule with like all the top players, and this is like Tiger used to play the Tiger schedule, and it was like all big tournaments, a couple tournaments that he played, you know, that you could say were easier fields, but for the most part, it was like he was winning a lot. Like one of the things that this designated event schedule has done is it's going to compress the best players' wins over time because they play less tournaments against weak fields than ever before.
That's a really good point. I never thought about that.
So like that makes Scotty's year all the more impressive last year, but it also to me makes doing it year in, year out more and more difficult. But it also like, I think like one of the things that like record wise, like we are already seeing career shorter for everybody else on tour. Like there's so many people that didn't win a tournament last year.
Yeah.
Like Morikawa was outstanding last year. And like, he finished runner up to Scotty like 3 times.
Right. Well, you also think about like the guys in those full field events, like it kind of changes their trajectory too. Like I think of a Jake Knapp and he won twice, I think, which is pretty insane.
Right?
Maybe once.
Yeah. Austin Eckroat won twice.
Yes. Okay. Austin Eckroat won twice. And like
he'd be like a perfect example of like a potential Ryder Cup player. He won twice. Right. He's like really good. Nobody knows really who he is, but he's really freaking good.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's a really good point about Scotty though. Like I wonder, I mean, I wish we could know like without the hand, and I wonder how much of a factor that's going to be, but it really does make it all the more impressive because almost all of those events were signature, you know, marquee events. And some of them were when he, you know, his back was out. It was the week after the Masters at the RBC. Like all forces were against this guy and he still won that much. And with the putting in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
It is remarkable. I hope it's not a huge setback for him. Like, but I go back to my conversations with Randy Smith where he talks about like how important Scotty's hands are to his golf swing, like it being like the connection between you and the club. And like, he says things like Scotty's got the best pair of hands I've ever seen. And, like he is a feel player. So I'm just like, I'm worried a little bit about the road back.
Anything hands or wrist for a golfer.
It's scary.
Is like worst thing. I think it's worse
what
than
happened with Jordan with Spieth and the wrist.
Yeah. That would be like total golf thing that a Christmas day probably I don't have any information, probably had a couple pops in them.
Maybe.
And like
more than likely.
Yeah. It's crazy. What do you have next?
Let's see. What else do I have? We kind of had some cross contamination here. This was my non-men's golf. Can the LPGA make a semblance of a turnaround in 2025?
It's a big question. I think when we talk about TV rights, that is the big huge hurdle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did after Molly stepped down, Brody, my colleague, and I did this kind of like survey of the LPGA and the problems that it has to face. And Brody did a really nice section about the problem with the TV deal. It's basically controlled by the PGA Tour. So one thing that he actually uncovered in reporting for this story, which I honestly didn't understand beforehand, was like basically the PGA Tour and the Champions Tour can get their act together on their schedules and tournaments much faster than the LPGA ever will be able to because of sponsorship money. So they basically just reserve all the good TV slots ahead of time. And the LPGA is just stuck with whatever is left over.
It is everybody romanticizes Mike Wan's tenure, and I think like it moved like leaps and bounds. He huge net positive for the LPGA, huge net positive. But I would say that I would also argue that one of the biggest mistakes made was bundling LPGA
negotiating
rights with the PGA Tour. You cannot have an organization that has ulterior motives control where your rights package.
No, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And again, that like 2031 date is looming over our heads. But like the LPGA, I feel like in our bubbles, like the Nelly year was incredible. And like everything that she did, very similarly to Scotty, was like against the odds and breaking records and just like playing machine robot golf. And like for more reasons than one, it just didn't break through. Like it didn't shine through for the LPGA. Nelly has gotten attention through Sports Illustrated swimsuit, Charlie Hull,
more popular
on social media.
Yeah,
like there have been like some wins for LPGA players, but like the league as a whole and the product as a whole, I feel like has just been like at a standstill. And now with like a lack of leadership and searching for a new commissioner, there's a lot at stake for the LPGA. And I feel like there are a few things that could save it. And I think one of the things that I was kind of riffing about on my notes is like the Charlie Nelly kind of like rivalry drama, like at the Solheim Cup. That was really exciting when they were.
Charlie needs to win more to be a rival.
Charlie does need to win more. Yes.
But at the same time, the Knicks were the Bulls' rival in the 90s and they never beat the Bulls. You know?
Right. Like we need some kind of drama. Like I feel like with the WNBA, like the obviously the Caitlin Clark effect is all powerful, but there's also like riffs and spats and controversy, and like
Lots
we never get that at the LPGA.
It makes me somewhat believe, and this has been a theme of this entire conversation, but like to me, I would have a big question if I was in charge of the LPGA. Is televised live golf the best version of product that we can put out there? And I kind of generally might say no.
Yeah, I would too.
I think that the LPGA, the women's golf has like, I think like one of the things that when you're smaller, one of the nice things you have is a little bit more freedom to try stuff. When you try, if you're the biggest person in a space and you try something and you fail, everybody knows you fail. But when you're a smaller product, a smaller company, a smaller footprint, you have so much more ability to experiment. And to be like, the LPGA should spend the next couple of years really experimenting and investing in alternative forms of golf, whether it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays at tournaments, organizing 100%. Matches at golf. Like, could we film 8 YouTube matches in a day at a really great golf course? So like, I think like to me, the LPGA with its current constraints of like, we have really bad TV windows. It's really like the only times we break through is when we're on network TV for the most part. I would be thinking about like, how do we build audience elsewhere? Because it seems really unlikely that they're going to build a huge audience through the Golf Channel with really bad air times. Yeah,
100% agree. I mean, like, I feel like why not experiment with YouTube golf? The LPGA doesn't have those rights restrictions. Like when you go to an LPGA event, I can post whatever I want. Like I can post videos and no one's going to say a word. And there's definitely room there for improvement.
I mean, they have 230,000 followers on YouTube. Yeah. And that seems to be like a number you could easily get to 1 million. And yeah. With a, like, you have the talent and the access. That's the hardest part about
to
this.
Get. Yes. I also do think that what could provide like a boost of energy to the LPGA as well is there is a really awesome like young contingent of American players coming up the ranks right now. Like there's like Amari Avery, Mega Gane, Rachel Heck is saying amateur, but Rachel Keane just turned pro. Like there could be kind of this like burst of youth on the LPGA that I think could really help, but the LPGA has to actually like take advantage of their presence and like do the right things with them to make it work.
They can't do what they did with Rose Zhang.
No,
From everything I hear, like Asterisk Tally is like a superstar and like going to be, you know, I think like that's one of the unique things with women's golf and the women's game is like you have to be really ready to promote superstars because they happen at age 17, 18, 19. Like you got to be ready to go and really, because like it's just like the nature of the sport is it's younger.
Mm-hmm.
And like you have like, you know, Lydia Ko was, you know, Lydia Ko is like an incredible, could have like if you'd had the right marketing, the right distribution at the start of Lydia Ko's career, it's like an amazing career, but she kind of came like a little too early. But like you just have to be really ready for the next superstar.
Yeah, and then those superstar household names don't have as much of a shelf life as the PGA Tour stars do, mm-hmm. because players step away earlier, and we saw that with Lexi Thompson this year.
Yeah. My last thing is Rory wins a major. If you bet on this enough, it's going to happen.
Wait, I lost you for a sec.
My last thing is Rory McIlroy wins a major. And I figure if you keep betting on this enough, eventually you're going to be right.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the longer this drought goes on, the harder it gets. And last summer was especially tough, and like the scar tissue there is immense. So I don't want to be personally too optimistic about this because I will get my hopes up and I will be let down again. But this is always a storyline. Every year it's a storyline.
I mean, you could make an argument that it's like the biggest ongoing story in golf.
Yeah, in golf, for sure. And we have Royal Portrush coming up.
I don't like that one.
You don't? Which one do you like?
Quail Hollow.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean, like
he loves that place.
Loves it. I mean, he can just hit it over every bunker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it's just. I think statistically, he keeps getting better. He is quantitatively a better golfer. It's a fascinating,
completely fascinating.
How many peak years does he have left? Does he have 16 good major championships left? I think that's the reality of it.
And getting one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like statistically, is it likely to happen? No. Right? I'm sorry. I hate to be this person.
I mean, like he's roughly played 40 majors. This is just back of the napkin math, right?
Okay.
So he's won four of 40. So he's roughly at like a 10% clip. So statistically, he should get one of the next 16. I mean,
that's true.
I think like there's a real question like how long is he going to play at a high level?
Right.
And that I think he's probably got 5 years, 4 to 5 years.
I think maybe he has more. I mean, like he has so much longevity, I think, in his like body. Like Rory never, I mean, maybe I'm wrong in this, but I feel like he's never injured.
He had a back scare early in his career and then they
Since then, has there been?
they overhauled his entire fitness
Right,
diet, everything to
taking 20 grams of creatine a day now.
How about Scotty not knowing creatine?
Well, he was like, yeah, there's been a lot of research, man, right? And then Rory's like shaking his protein thing.
Scotty might be like the most combo. aloof.
I know.
Great play. Like he's never gonna get like the Dustin Johnson treatment, but there is like some Dustin Johnson in him.
Yeah, well, I think he just like has the like blinders on.
Yeah.
Like I remember that quote from, I think it was like the GQ story on Scotty, was like he has like certain news alerts like blocked on his phone, so he can't even get golf news. Like that takes effort.
I would say like, yeah. And I think like it's an interesting with, if you compare him to Rory, like Rory. I think Rory's like hyper aware.
Yes.
Scotty is like completely unaware.
Hater blockers on. Yes.
I think it goes to like that. I don't know if it was Phil or whoever said it. Like you have to be either like extraordinarily brilliant or complete idiot to play this game.
There's nothing really in between.
Well. Yeah. And most of us fall in between.
Yes, exactly. Oh, okay. My bonus one that I want to mention, which is topical today on the day that we're recording, is in 2025, Tiger Woods will turn 50. Will he play the Champions Tour?
I've heard, well, Fred Couples was saying that he thinks he's going to play a lot. It makes sense, especially if he can ride a cart.
Totally. And he won't feel like he's getting any special treatment or breaking any rules. Like he's going to want to break Bernard Longer's record or whoever holds
I don't think he's got a chance to touch Bernie.
Me either, but like he'll want to try. It's Tiger.
I think you could parlay this into the Champions Tour years. The early Champions Tour years are Tiger's best chances at major championships going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because we just like, there's no way for this guy to play like a 72 hole event within 2 weeks of a walking 72 holes within 2 weeks of a major.
Right.
And we've seen like when he won in 2019, there was a buildup. There was like, oh, he's contending here. He's contending here. He wins here. Like there was a real buildup. And with this, like he has to play golf to contend at a major. Like
get his competitive reps in. Yep.
I don't think it's possible for anybody to not play golf and then just show up at a major and win. Like it's I think it's out of the realm of possibility.
Just walk your flat Florida golf course and step up at Pinehurst and like expect to be fine. But yeah, I mean that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that. Like he'll be able to like get that like under pressure like reps and experience and like feel what his swing does like in those moments. And that's, you hear players talk about that all the time, and like you never being able to replicate that in any way, no matter like how hard you try. It's just tournament golf is a different animal.
So I haven't played a tournament in years. One of my resolutions might be playing a golf tournament.
Same. US Mid-Am. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, I can qualify now. I always get so scared though.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
The one I played, I was like, I'm never going to miss one of these. And I've played one qualifier since.
Right. Even in college, I would just back out at the last second. I would be too scared.
So anyways, like, I think like if I went and played a tournament tomorrow, even though I feel like my game is good, I probably would shoot like a 78. But if I played 15 tournaments in a year, that 78... that same level of play would be a 72 just because of like understanding what's going on.
No, 100%. 100%.
This is why like I think like one of my favorite things is like when a really good club player goes and plays like a state qualifier and shoots 82.
Right. It happens all the time.
This is not playing Saturday at a course you played 100 times in a row.
It's a different game. You have to put everything out, penalty shots, you could pump 2 balls out of bounds on the first hole. Like, I played even in like club matches or the WMGA. There's like a women's match play series that I play in every spring. The first time I did it was probably like 2 years out of college, and I literally forgot how to putt. Like, I could not putt for the life of me. I think I 4-putted and 5-putted. I was playing against like a 70-year-old woman, and like we halved on the front nine. I was like, what is happening? Like, I need help. I need help. Like, you literally just, it's a totally different mindset, completely different. Like, I can't describe like what pressure does to you on the golf course if you're not prepared for it.
And like, you have to play. Even at Tiger's level, the greatest player of all time, like, it'd be like somebody being like, hey, we're going to, Luka Doncic hasn't played all year. Somehow the Mavs get to the finals and he hasn't played all year, but he's going to play in this finals. He would stink. Sure, he'd have like some good shot. He'd make a couple shots, but like, if you haven't played basketball in a long time in a competitive setting, you get like winded. You feel like Rusty. You have 2 left hands, like it is. The same thing happens with golf, and it's like it doesn't just matter if you practice a bunch.
No,
it is being in the arena. So I actually love the Tiger Champions Tour angle. All right, that does it. What do you have coming up on The Athletic? Great golf coverage on The Athletic.
Oh, thank you, Andy. Stay tuned for a feature I have coming out Thursday on Xander Schauffele and his dad, Stefan. Kind of a inside look at how the mind of Xander was built. The mind that won his first major and then his second major 2 months later. Kind of take a look at why Stefan stepped away, what led to that decision, what he's been up to since, and just the dynamic with Xander throughout his life and kind of the values and persistence that was instilled in him as a young player and leading him to do what he's able to do now on the biggest stages in golf. And now Kapalua, number 1 player, is getting surgery on his hand, and Xander, the floodgates are indeed open for Xander Schauffele. One thing that I found really interesting talking to Stefan, I didn't know this, was Xander has never regressed in his world ranking if you look at it on a year-to-year basis. So the ranking that he started at the beginning of the year and the ranking he ended up at the end of the year, he's never regressed. He's only ever went up or stayed at his current ranking, and now he's number 2 in the world, and there's only 1 place to go. So that's going to be your Xander primer for the week.
If you start to look at his career, it's like a very, very impressive career.
It's incredible. Yeah. He just hangs around. That's what he does. I
think he's about 1 win from being, I think, pretty much like an unassailable, better than JT career. Probably one big win away from that. And yeah, I think he's already pretty much there. Like, the consistency is just incredible. So I'm excited to read that.
Awesome. Thank you for having me as always, Andy. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Gabby. Have a great new year.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Before we get to PJ and Joseph, a quick little plug for Club TFE. This is our membership. It is, we are producing a lot of work in this year in, year out. This will be year 3 of our membership. So one of the great things about this is that if you join now, you get access to our entire backlog of content that we've produced over the last 2 years. We have almost 100 course profiles, really detailed write-ups about some of the best golf courses in the world. We have a big library of member videos that are, effectively like what you would see on our YouTube page quality. And we're in event season, so you get early access to our events as well as a discount in the pro shop. This is the best way to support this podcast, this company, is to join our membership. It's $120 for the year, and you get access, from the day you join, your year starts, and you get access to all of the content that we've produced over the last 2 years. So if you're interested in joining, go to thefriedegg.com/membership, and you can join there. All right, let's get to PJ Clark and Joseph LaMagna on TGL. All right, we got producer PJ and Fried Egg Golf's Joseph LaMagna on. We're going to talk a little bit about the TGL. The TGL launches Tuesday of next week, so the next episode of this podcast will be out after it launches on Wednesday morning. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the TGL. This is a new form of golf. I'm not sure how many people know this is coming. I think a good chunk of listeners probably know. I'm going to run down just the general format real quick, and then we're going to get into kind of overarching thoughts on this and the first season of it. So there are 6 teams. So this is a team golf. They play in a stadium, the SoFi Center. They play a remarkably large screen. It's like simulator golf on a giant screen. And if you follow any of the TGL socials, you'll know that this is a big screen. You can fit multiple dinosaurs in it. So there's 6 teams from different cities. You got Boston, New York, Atlanta, LA, San Francisco, and the monster metropolis of Jupiter, Florida. The players will all be mic'd up. So the way it will work is one team will play a different team, kind of like a traditional sport where you have these cities and the teams play the different teams, but all these contests will happen in West Palm Beach at the SoFi Center. So there's no like home stadiums yet. The players are mic'd up. They have a 40-second shot clock. So they have, effectively 40 seconds from when the last shot was hit to hit. They are 15-hole matches. And the format of the matches are 9 holes of triples. So each team will have 3 players playing. They are teams of 4. 3 players will play 3-person alternate shot. So it works just like regular alternate shot, but with 3 people. So you hit every 3rd shot if you're playing in the alternate shot format. And then 6 holes of singles. And the way singles would work is one player plays 1 hole, player 2 plays player 2, the other team on the next hole, player 3. So you'd play effectively 2. Each player would play 2 holes of singles play, and then the scoring is kind of scored the way hockey is scored. So you get 2 points for a win, you get a point for a loss in overtime, you get a 0 points for a 0 points for a loss in regulation. So that's kind of the basics of it. There are big time players playing in it. Obviously, Rory and Tiger are kind of the headliners. They are part of the ownership group here. And then you've got other big time players like Xander Schauffele, Justin Thomas, Ludwig Aubert. Those are kind of the headliners. And, the big kind of other part of this is players not playing. Scotty Scheffler, Jordan Spieth are kind of big name players that aren't playing, as well as any LIV player. So those are the nuts and bolts. Let's get into a couple of takeaways. Like I'll start this out. I think that this is kind of important, and it's easy. The way they've marketed it, it's been kind of fun and easy to bat it around. But I do think this kind of needs to work for pro golf. I think that pro golf desperately needs additional days to be relevant beyond Sunday. Right now, like week in, week out on the PGA Tour, it's kind of like, I think for like even getting close to diehard fans, it's become, let's tune in Sunday, see who wins. That's a real core fan. If you could create something, this will be played on Mondays and Tuesdays. The first match is on a Tuesday after the national championship on ESPN. If you could create something that's really relevant on Mondays and Tuesdays, I think that's a huge, huge win for pro golf and the PGA Tour. ESPN obviously is a massive microphone that has the ability to kind of build awareness of these players, build fans of players. I think these are things that golf struggles with, and this actually has the opportunity to satisfy that. Now, on the flip side, I think it's going to be hard for this to succeed also, but it is, and I think like there are going to be lots of takes flying after the first match, but this is a brand new product. It's going to be a process of figuring this out. Joseph, what are your kind of initial thoughts of TGL and the direction it's heading?
Andy, my biggest take on the whole thing, I think it has a chance for success, and some of the factors that you're mentioning, with it being on prime time, with it having a huge distribution network and partner in ESPN, with it being timed, with it fitting into a 2-hour window, seeing every single shot because there's not a bunch of golf balls up in the air. I think some of the production value should be very high. Like, all of those things are working in its favor. My biggest take on this, though, is that for it to succeed, the gameplay itself needs to be very compelling. And I feel that way about all sports, and this might be overly analytical, but like, part of the reason the NFL is so popular, and I know people are a little tired of comparisons to other sports, but the NFL gameplay is ridiculously good, right? The rules are good. It's dynamic. The gameplay evolves. Like, they're constantly tweaking the rules, considering how to change things. I think that with TGL, they have. I'm cautiously optimistic about the format they've landed on, with the triples and the singles, and then also like the hammer element that maybe we can get into a little bit. Like, I actually think they've done a potentially pretty good job with the gameplay. I'm very concerned about the design of the golf holes, and people might be a little bit dismissive of that, but I think this was a massive opportunity to get crazy with the golf holes and make that the star of the show. The more you're going to rely on the golfers being the stars of the show and them being interesting, mic'd up, that's got no chance. But if the gameplay
a great point. A great point is like, nobody tunes into the NFL because of the personality of the players.
No.
Nobody tunes into the NBA because of the personality of the players. Like,
kind
people
of
tune into sports because of the gameplay, and
which produces those personalities and those stars. Like, that is the part that I will hammer home. The gameplay itself, if it's electric, then you won't even miss that Scotty Scheffler isn't there, because the guys are competitive and they're going to be into it, and it's going to be fun to watch the different shots they're hitting, all that comes with it. If the gameplay itself isn't that compelling, and they're hanging their hats on the golfers being interesting, mic'd up, and some of the banter, then this thing's dead on arrival. So that's my overarching take.
PJ, your thoughts?
I am most intrigued as to the ESPN buy-in on this and how seriously they take it with the distribution platforms. Obviously, they're giving it a lot of primetime airtime, which not like they have a ton going on between January and March on Monday and Tuesday nights. So it's nice that golf and the PGA Tour has kind of gotten that market for them. But how are they promoting it on social? How aggressive are they cross-promoting it on other platforms? Like you said, the first match has the lead-in from the National Championship the night before. The second week is going to be the Monday night wildcard game for the NFL. So those are the two biggest audiences that ESPN is going to have all year. That is leading into the first 2 weeks of this. How many people cross over to the next night? You watch the wildcard game on Monday night, and then you watch the first Jupiter Lynx match because they're advertising Tiger during the wildcard game. How aggressive is ESPN doing that? How much does ESPN want this to succeed versus how much does, the PGA Tour or the sport of golf or whoever else?
Yeah, I mean, the ESPN thing, I think they are going to push it the more successful it is, right? I think they are at the point where they have, they know pretty quickly what's going to be a success. They probably have a very robust analytics team that understands like what things can pop based off of early numbers. And I would say, like, I think this is like, you hit on the core points here. Like if we talk about golf formatting and like how could golf draw a bigger audience, like right now, like a lot of golf's events happen in the summer in the middle of weekend days. Like that's not necessarily like a captive audience. If you think about like the history of watching television, summer is just dead because like people are outside. Their new shows aren't being released, right? Like when it was network television was like the primary show. No new shows were being released in the summer. Baseball is really the only sport other than golf that's going, and there's like, you know, they kind of thrive on tonnage. There's so many games. So if you think about this, it gets golf into a window that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get to, because in the winter in America, days are short. It gets dark really early. This is the indoor golf, screen golf's the only way outside of playing in Australia that golf, or let's just say South America, that golf could get into this Monday night, Tuesday night. People are at home. It's winter. Most of the country's inside. They're looking for things to take up their time. This is where I think like it has to work for golf. I don't think you get many opportunities to be on network TV with a format in prime time during the week on the biggest sports network there is. Like this is why I think like, and I think we could get into the gameplay a little bit, like why I think it has to work. And I don't know if it's necessarily set up for success year one. I think a lot of people are going to be kind of like, what is this? They're going to have a lot of figuring out to do. And I do agree with you, Joseph, like the golf holes, it to me seems like one architect of the three they picked actually understood the task, and whether he's executed the task or not is another question. But like I think the golf holes are probably for this audience that listens to this podcast, probably the most compelling thing. But like, the world is their oyster. They can make anything, and you can put these golfers in perplexing situations. If you want to look at all the golf holes, you can go to TGL.com or TGLGolf.com, and under TGL Explained, there's like vignettes on every hole. The way they're going to be put together is they're going to be mix and matched. So they have, a big set of holes. It's not going to be the same holes every time, but I think their idea is like, we're going to find some favorites that we want to have, like people are going to love, and we're going to have in every match. The holes, like I definitely think that they are this is the first year of golf holes. I think that they are keenly aware that there are holes that are winners and losers in this batch. What are your biggest complaints with the holes, Joseph?
Yeah, I honestly, I'm skeptical that there are that many winners in this batch. Like my vision for TGL would be that you have almost no constraints. You have one massive constraint in that the green zone can only shift around a little bit, and it's surrounded by the same three bunkers.
Well, see, this is what I don't understand. So they've built like they play around the greens and on the greens in the stadium.
50 yards and in.
50 yards and in is on the stadium, and they have a green that's structured like a certain way. So it has the same bunkers and the same general shape. What I don't understand, why can't they just like rope off part of the area for certain holes? Why can't the green get smaller or bigger? And why can't certain bunkers be turned off and certain bunkers turned on? That's what I don't get.
I would like to see that. One thing I think they can do is shrink the effective area so it's not always 50 yards and in. Like there's one par 3 where they've removed a lot of that area and it's just the green and the bunkers and like a little bit of the surrounds. But I'm with you, Andy. I wish you could move the bunkers around a little bit. I'm sure it's difficult. But to get to your question about why I think they're bad, to me, like, and I mean, this is a serious architecture take about how you test professional golfers, but I think great architecture for professional golfers has 3 characteristics that I've landed on. One, there needs to be a penalty to a narrow miss and a significant penalty to a wider miss. So that would be one principle. Principle 2 would be players need to hit different types of shots, not just stock shots. And then the third would be that when the ball hits the ground, there needs to be intrigue. To me, this is a lot of just stock shots into holes that don't even necessarily have great risk reward profiles. And it's going to get boring. I like Andy, I would have hazards in the air. And I'm not kidding about that. Like a centerline hazard in the sky that you have to curve it around one way or the other. Like this should be completely like hitting it into pipes where if you hit it into the pipe, it shoots it out way down the fairway. If you miss, you're in the water. Like this should have been nuts. And a lot of these holes, like they wouldn't be interesting in real life, let alone in simulator golf. So I just think the failure to lean into the lack of
Nicklaus holes are flat out bad.
They're flat out embarrassing.
Bad holes on golf courses. And they're even worse when you consider there's no constraints. It's like they literally like gave it to their junior associate and said, scribble out some golf holes.
I mean, the par threes are going to be really boring because...
But the problem with the par threes is that they have the same bunker and green shape.
Exactly. So that's where I'm expressing some concern.
I think like what you said about the ball hitting the ground and rolling, everything I've seen from it, every shot I've seen hit in the screen, the giant screen that 3 dinosaurs can fit in. Every shot I've seen, the ball has like kind of landed really softly. And I would love to see, like, can we just like ramp it up? Like, we know the best golf is when the greens are firm and the ball's rolling. Could we just like set the simulator to produce us baked out links conditions? And the format would infinitely get better.
Andy, I think there should be like trampolines in some of the fairways, or like speed slots. I'm not kidding. Where you hit a certain spot,
you can put a cart path right down the middle, like the Design Disasters hole at Hickory Hills.
You kid, but I'm. That's what this should look like to me. Like completely alternative form of golf. When you turn a lot of these holes on that you mentioned, tglgolf.com/holes, you can look at them. It's not going to play dynamically, and to me, that's a colossal failure in a simulator league where there are virtually no constraints besides the green zone. So that's a big take for me.
PJ, do you have anything that you're skeptical or bullish about?
I am wondering how the 40-second shot clock is going to work for the TV aspect of this, because 40 seconds in reality is not that much time. So if we are...
You think that's about is that the play clock for the NFL,
Yeah.
40 seconds?
Yeah.
It's quick.
You're going to call for resets?
Yeah, just you gotta pump this out. We gotta take a time out, 10-second runoff, all that good stuff. But seriously, like if this is based on the personalities of the players, and they're gonna want these viral clips of, Tom Kim talking to Kevin Kisner or whatever. If it's only 40 seconds between each shot, how much time do you realistically have for these made for TV moments outside of the actual golf shots themselves? I'm sure there's going to be, mid-match interviews and whatnot. Like there's going to be obviously a TV aspect to this, but the 40-second shot clock is well, I think it's going to be interesting to see if there are any negative reactions to this from the players, because then maybe we can get a shot clock in actual golf at some point. But then B, how does that work out for the television product and the mic'd up aspect of this?
I think for the television product, and I've always said this with regards to shot clock in golf, it's like groundbreaking, because like for the first time in golf, an announcer knows when somebody's going to hit a shot, and you can build your entire like discourse and graphics and everything, the camera, like how you interchange, like this is going to be an infinitely better television product for golf, because it's a fixed location. Like everybody complains about golf coverage. It's like, well, like they're having to broadcast 200 acres of a field. Like most sports are on a court. Right? Like, so it's already an infinitely hard job, because like you have 18 playing fields effectively. that are massive, that are bigger than any other playing field. And you don't know when the players are going to pull the triggers, the other thing. Here, you have an effective court, one playing field, and you know exactly when the players are going to hit the shot. So I think the telecast, as they learn, like I'd be curious, like, have they done practice matches with the broadcast partner? I assume they have. They've have to have, because like you could really build, like, I think this is another thing to be bullish about. Like, with the way that this is set up, I think you could build probably, as you know, you're not going to reach a major, but you're going to build a pretty compelling golf product.
Especially if the gameplay is good. And that's where I'm optimistic about the role that Roberto Castro has played in some of this, a frequent Friday guest. I know he's run through this with buddies and getting it all set up and engineering what this format should look like. The hammer part of this is pretty cool, Andy. Like at any point...
Can you explain the hammer part of this for everybody?
Yeah, so at any given point, one of the teams has possession of the hammer. And my understanding is they can throw it at any point during the hole when they feel like they have an advantage, and it adds a point to the point value that they're playing that hole for. And if their opponent accepts it, it adds that point value to the hole. If the opponent declines it, then they concede the hole and they concede the point to the other team. So, and then the possession of the hammer changes into the other team. So, like, again, thinking that it could have as much complexity as a sport like the NFL, like, it's not going to have that, but there might be these little things baked in, like, when do you take your timeouts? Who hits on each hole? Like, when do you throw the hammer? There's a referee. Like, it actually has some additional elements for people to sink their teeth into that I think could be pretty compelling. And I think the game format could end up being pretty fast-paced and compelling, right? It's mainly the golf holes I'm skeptical of. The rest of it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think, like, that's where I think there should be a lot of optimism. Do you guys have a favorite team? Who's your team? I'm wearing my Ball Frogs hat. I was I think I was maybe fan number one of the Frogs. Do you guys have teams picked out?
Go ahead, PJ.
I'm riding with my NYGC. I have to, solidarity with Steve Cohen, solidarity with Cam Young.
Long Islander, you have to stick with your roots.
I got a hometown team, unlike you, who does not have a hometown team somehow.
Me?
That the third biggest media market in the country doesn't have a team.
I could have been an SF fan, though.
You could have been an SF fan.
My issue is that our star player's never been to the city.
That is a real issue.
I'm New York GC through and through as well, PJ. I'm not from there originally, but have some roots out there. And I do believe if there's ever been a golfer who is as positioned for simulator golf as Cam Young, then I'd be shocked. If you talk about a player whose struggles come on and around the green, I think the green zone is a massive Band-Aid on that. And Cam Young is just, I don't know if it's going to be a good thing for him or a bad thing for him if he's going to become the punchline of a joke if he's just absolutely elite at simulator golf and then finishes T8 in majors and can never win a PGA Tour event. But I think that might be exactly what we see.
We're going to have a big New York-Boston rivalry. I mean, I've only experienced this from the outside. Now I'm in the throes of it with my Ball Frogs.
I don't know. Are people going to turn on Keegan at Bethpage if the Ball Frogs have a great season as the headliner of a Boston team?
That's the thing. He's got the St. John's connection, though. He can play. Has anybody ever, played both sides of the Boston-New York rivalry as much as well as Keegan?
No. Johnny Damon, Keegan Bradley.
That's the list. All right. Well, we'll be excited. I'm going to be locked in for this on Tuesday. What is it, the 8th?
Yes.
Tuesday the 7th. 7th.
Can I throw one quick question at you guys?
Yeah.
Which is the golfer that complains the most about where his ball ends up? That thinks the simulator technology is not doing him justice? I didn't hit that ball there. The technology's a little off. Who whines the most? That's what I'm probably most interested in.
It's a shame that Tyrrell Hatton is not involved in this, because that's the first answer that came into my head.
I mean, here's like the thing. you scroll through this like list of players, right? And if we could just like take a wand and erase Lucas Glover, let's say, I don't know who else I want to pick out, but like Lucas Glover, a couple others from this list, and we could replace it with like Bryson, Brooks, and Tyrrell. It would get a lot more compelling. Phil would be electric in this type of atmosphere.
Oh my God.
Might miss the screen.
Like you think about like what this could be with some of the personalities that are on LIV. Some of the, I would say, quote unquote, what people would label as bad actors. I think like one other thing that I brought up in my conversation with Gabby on the other part of this podcast, it's important to note this wouldn't exist without LIV. We would never have gotten here where this even is a possibility without LIV. The tour would have done what they always do, said, oh, that's a good idea. And they would have like taken it to the conference rooms and it would have died or morphed into something awful. The fact that this exists is purely because of the position that the tour was in, and that allowed Tiger and Rory to really create this.
Not the answer I expected.
What?
Not the answer I expected to which golfer will complain the most about where the ball ends up, but I think a good point.
I'll take Justin Rose to answer your question.
Matty Fitz has got to be high on the list here.
Well, what are the driver rules for this? If he cracks his driver, is he allowed to switch it out? Where does this? We need the referee.
He'll pull out his like notebook and be like, "Look, I've hit this shot 4 times in the last 2 years. Here are the logs."
That's actually a great point.
Does Fitzpatrick log these shots? Is a great question.
I think he does. He does. He has to, right? That's the bit. The good news is there's a reporter that will tell us if he does or doesn't. Danny Raps is ever present on the Matty Fitz beat, so he will let us know. I think I was gonna say going back to the holes. One thing I noticed this morning when I was going through them is that I think Pisa's done the best job of every architect at these holes, but he designed effectively the same hole 3 times. Did you notice this?
Yeah,
Joseph.
Yeah,
he's got three split fairway holes with like a narrow center. He did this 3 times. There are 3 of them. There's a par 5, a short par 4, and a long par 4 with effectively like the same concept.
He also did basically the same thing with some of the triangle holes. Like some of them are almost identical. Like Pisa understood that this should be out of the box and a little bit nuts. He did not understand risk reward profile of the modern golfer. So like that's the plus and minus going on with Pisa there. The other 2, I honestly don't think Bo Welling did a terrible job, but it's still like very conventional. And then the Nicklaus design gets an F. It's bad in real life and even scores lower marks for the lack of creativity. So that's how I'm evaluating these 3 architects before this thing gets underway.
Yeah, I was looking at the Pisa holes, and I like his overarching thoughts on them. But then I was looking at them, and I'm like, wait, these are like the same holes, just like different yardages. I think one of the biggest mistakes that all the architects made was the yardages. Like these yardages should be insanely long. Like there should be 570 yard par 4s. Like this was the reason that we don't have 8,000 or 9,000 yard major championship golf courses, which is what we absolutely need, is because of like resources, space, setting a bad example, like painting golf in a completely unsustainable realm. But like if you're a golf architect, you should absolutely understand that if you want holes to actually play out the way you want them, these holes need to be insanely long, because these guys hit it 350 yards. Like these holes we should be seeing guys pulling 3-wood, hitting it, especially with the limited amount that you could do at the green. Like you have a very constrained green. So if I want to create strategy, I have to build distance. And I think that's like probably for me, the most disappointing thing is that like you see, it's like the yardages just do not match up. There's a 627 yard par 5. That's great. But like the longest par 4 is, let's see, I think it's 535, but that one's set at elevation. That's Alpine. That's a Nicklaus design that's in the mountains.
I'm with you, Andy. You could have 800-yard holes where there's opportunities like through, I'll keep saying, like pipes and stuff to maybe pipe it up. Like yes, that's what it should look a little Mario Golf-esque. Like I believe that's the way that they should go.
Yeah, I was like, I've thought about holes. I've sketched some out. I did an Instagram post. You did one too, Joseph. I did like a design. One of the things I thought about is like something that would work really well with simulator golf is that would mimic real life golf is trees.
Mm-hmm.
Trees would work really well, especially for pro golfers. Like you could make a hole look like a real golf hole, but use trees as hazards and to create different lines. Like to me, like, yeah, I think the bunkers are going to be like the least interesting aspect of this because it's like perfect sand and it's like effectively like a little sandbox that you drop a ball in and you have you don't drop, you place a ball in, you have a perfect flat lie. So like that to me, like immediately, if I'm a golf architect and I see that as the way the sand is like, okay, that's not going to be very interesting. These guys are so good. It's not a relevant hazard. So like, what are the things that like I can put that are going to make like trees to me would scream as a great thing. Like, okay, I could put a 300-foot redwood tree anywhere.
Force the guys to curve it.
Yes.
Force them to curve the ball.
I think that's what I like about Pisa's holes is that there is like you have to make a decision. What we don't see enough, like, so when you combine the timer, the shot clock with really good design, I think like what you're going to see is what you see with other sports where players are going to have to react quickly and make intentional decisions. And I think that's how it wins. All right. Well, any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
I'm excited. I actually think this whether it goes in a positive or a negative direction, this is TBD. But I think this is going to be, at least for the first couple of weeks, it's going to be pretty fun to watch along to see what happens at the outset here.
I'm super excited. I think that the opportunity for funny stuff, whether it's jokes about golfers who do well on a simulator but not in real life, like there's gonna be so much content to come from this, and it's gonna be something everyone's watching at the same time. Like I'm pretty excited. I think it could work. And if they tweaked the golf holes and made them a lot more creative, you might actually have like a pretty legit product.
Yeah. I think the golf holes are the obvious kind of flaw here. I think like there's got to be somebody in the room that tells them or that, evaluates these holes before you put them on the screen. To me, it just seems like every hole was rubber stamped. It was just like, oh, thanks for sending this in. There needs to be some sort of vetting process of like, okay, let's try this. Like that's the beauty of this. It takes a second to build them, and then you can have Roberto Castro play them or somebody play them in literally 2 minutes and be like, okay, this works. This doesn't work. This is what they're going to do every time here. So, all right. I'm excited. This is going to kick off next week, and I'm sure this will be, whether it's great, whether it's meh, or whether it's lackluster, it will be a big talking point of the golf world the first quarter of this year. All right. Big thanks to PJ for producing this episode. We will be back next Wednesday with a new episode of the Friday Golf Podcast. thank you to everybody for the support, and I hope you have a great start to your 2025.